Welcome to the Rare Coins Explorers, the ultimate treasure hunt for hidden gems in your pocket change. Imagine holding in your hand a small, copper-colored coin that most people would pass off as just another ordinary penny. But what if I told you that a 1968 USA 1-cent coin, a simple Lincoln Memorial penny, could actually be worth an astounding $3,000 because of its rarity, historical significance, and the fascinating errors that make it a treasure in the world of coin collecting. And today we are diving deep into the story of how such a tiny piece of metal can carry such an enormous value, captivating collectors, historians, and even casual hobbyists alike. Because the truth is, this coin is far from ordinary, and the reasons for its extraordinary value lie not just in its age but in the intricate details, the production process at the Denver Mint in 1968, and the small mistakes that turned some of these coins into incredibly rare and highly sought-after pieces. So to understand the full picture, we have to go back to the late 1960s when the US Mint was producing billions of pennies each year. The Vietnam War was raging, the American economy was shifting, and the country was going through major political and cultural changes. Yet in the middle of all this, the Denver Mint was tasked with striking millions of Lincoln Memorial cents bearing the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. But as with any mass production, errors sometimes slip through the cracks, and these minting mistakes, whether due to misaligned dies, doubled dies, off-center strikes, planchet errors, or other mechanical mishaps, can turn a regular coin into a collector's dream. And for the 1968 penny, there are several varieties and errors that have become legendary, one of the most famous being the doubled die obverse, where certain letters in the inscriptions, Liberty, or In God We Trust, or the date 1968, appear doubled, a visual anomaly caused by die misalignment during production, making such pieces incredibly scarce and valuable. And then there are off-center strikes where the design is visibly shifted because the blank was not properly centered in the coining press, resulting in a coin that may show a crescent of blank space along one edge and a partial design on the other. The more dramatic the off-center, the rarer and more valuable the coin, especially if the date is still fully visible. As well as broad strikes where the collar failed and the coin was struck without being properly confined, creating a wider than normal appearance. And let's not forget about the transitional errors where planchets intended for other denominations were mistakenly struck with the 1-cent design, or wrong planchet errors where a penny design appears on a planchet meant for a dime or foreign coin, making these accidental creations both fascinating and incredibly lucrative to find. And in 1968, the Denver Mint mark, D, beneath the date is an important identifying feature because it tells collectors exactly where the coin was produced, and certain variations in the mint mark itself, such as repunched mint marks, RPMs, where the letter D was stamped twice at slightly different angles or positions, add another layer of rarity. Collectors spend years hunting for high-grade examples, those in mint state condition with sharp details, brilliant luster, and little to no wear, because condition heavily influences value. And it's in the combination of these factors, rarity of errors, demand among collectors, and pristine condition, that a 1968 penny can command a price tag of $3,000 or more at auction. And think about the thrill of finding such a coin in your change or tucked away in an old jar in your attic. It's not just a matter of luck but also of knowing exactly what to look for. From subtle doubling in the lettering to misaligned designs or unusual coloration that might suggest a planchet anomaly. And the story doesn't end there, because the coin market is dynamic, with values shifting as demand rises and falls, and certain coins, like the 1968 penny with notable errors, only get rarer as time goes on, making them a solid long-term investment for serious collectors. And part of the coin's allure comes from the historical context of the year it was minted, a period of social change and economic tension in the U.S., giving the coin a place not only in numismatic history but also in the broader narrative of American culture. And when you hold a rare 1968 penny in your hand, you are touching a tangible piece of that era, a physical connection to the craftsmanship, the mistakes, and the chance occurrences that give coins their stories. And what's amazing is that these stories can transform an object worth 1 cent into something worth thousands, inspiring treasure hunts among coin roll hunters, estate sale browsers, and metal detector hobbyists who dream of discovering that one elusive piece. And while it's true that not every 1968 penny will fetch $3,000, the existence of such valuable examples drives the excitement in the hobby, because the next coin you find could be the one, and that's why collectors pore over every detail with magnifying glasses, study mint records, and share discoveries in online forums and coin shows, fueling a community of enthusiasts who know that even the smallest coins can hide the biggest surprises. And when you think about it, this is the magic of numismatics, where history, art, economics, and human error converge in a way that turns everyday change into historical artifacts and potential gold mines. And so the next time you come across a 1968 penny, don't dismiss it as just another piece of loose change, because if it has the right combination of errors, mint condition, and rarity, it could be worth far more than its face value. And who knows? You might be holding in your palm a $3,000 treasure that connects you to the fascinating world of coin collecting, so always keep your eyes open, your mind curious, and your pocket change ready for inspection, because hidden among the ordinary could be something truly extraordinary. And if you enjoyed diving into this incredible story about how a humble penny could be worth a fortune, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more amazing coin stories, and join us on this journey of discovering the hidden treasures that might just be waiting in your own home. Next, 1995 1-cent coin. Imagine finding a single penny in your change jar and later discovering it could fetch hundreds of dollars at auction, because that's the kind of jaw-dropping reality we're talking about when it comes to the remarkable 1995 USA 1-cent coin. A piece with a modest face value of just 1 cent but a market value that has been known to climb to $493 in certain conditions, making it one of those hidden in plain sight treasures that sends coin collectors into a frenzy and casual spenders into double-check mode. And when you consider its story, it's no wonder this coin has captured so much attention. Minted in Denver in 1995 during an era when billions of Lincoln cents were being struck, the vast production numbers meant that maintaining perfect quality was a challenge, and therein lies the opportunity for unique characteristics to emerge. Because when you have thousands of dies working overtime and metal planchets feeding into presses non-stop, the likelihood of striking errors, die deterioration, misalignments, and other anomalies increases dramatically. So in the midst of the everyday production churn, certain coins slip through with features that defy the perfection the US Mint strives for, creating what collectors call varieties and errors that can boost a coin's value far beyond its nominal worth. Now, the 1995 descent has been documented to show everything from minor die chips and cuds, small, raised areas caused by breaks in the die, to more eye-catching doubled dies, where inscriptions or parts of Lincoln's portrait appear with a slight but distinct doubling, which is the kind of mistake that makes numismatists' hearts race. And while the Philadelphia 1995 double die obverse is more famous, the Denver minted pieces are still highly sought after for their clean strikes, sharp mint marks, and any anomalies that make them stand out. Because a coin that looks just a bit different from its billions of siblings immediately becomes a conversation piece and a candidate for premium value, especially if it's been preserved in high-grade condition, which is where the real magic happens in the numismatic market. Think about it. A 1995 descent that's been kept out of circulation since the day it was minted, stored safely away from the wear and tear of pockets, cash registers, and change jars, could retain its original luster, crisp edges, and strong details, and if that coin also happens to feature a recognized error or variety, you've got a potential gem worth hundreds. And this is not an exaggeration, because in documented sales, collectors have paid top dollar for high-grade specimens, driven by the rarity factor, the historical interest, and the sheer fun of owning a coin that turns the idea of a penny's value upside down. But the fascination doesn't stop with serious numismatists. Casual hobbyists and even everyday people have been drawn into the hunt for 1995 descents, combing through their spare change, old piggy banks, or inherited jars of coins from grandparents, because the dream of finding that one perfect piece, the one with the right combination of error and preservation, is a tantalizing prospect, and stories of lucky finds only fuel the excitement. like the tale of someone discovering a nearly flawless specimen with an obverse doubling while rolling pennies for deposit. Or the collector who purchased a bulk lot of mixed change only to realize later that one coin in the pile was worth hundreds. These stories resonate because they remind us that treasures can be hiding in the most ordinary places, and they also underscore why the 1995 cent has earned a place in the pantheon of modern coinage worth knowing about, because it represents the perfect storm of high mintage, minting challenges, and public fascination, and while its base value will forever be 1 cent, its market value tells a completely different story, reflecting the dynamics of supply and demand, condition rarity, and collector passion. And this phenomenon is not isolated. Coins like the 1995 cent illustrate the broader truth that even in the era of mass production, small imperfections and unique characteristics can transform the mundane into the extraordinary. And it's this transformation that makes the hunt so rewarding, because for every coin you check and set aside, there's a chance that the next one will be the big find, the one you'll show to friends, family, or perhaps even a professional grading service. And when that grading service sends it back in a sealed holder with a high MS, mint state, rating, you'll understand why collectors are willing to pay $493 or more for what others might dismiss as pocket change, because that plastic holder isn't just a protective case, it's a certificate of authenticity, a ticket to the upper echelons of the numismatic market, and a reminder that you've turned a penny into a small fortune simply by paying attention, which is why now, more than ever, people are taking a closer look at their coins, not just the ones from decades ago, but the ones they encounter every day, and the 1995 cent is one of the shining examples proving that the ordinary can indeed be extraordinary. So if you've ever doubted that a penny could make headlines, change hands for hundreds of dollars, or become a centerpiece of a coin collection, this is your proof. A story that continues to inspire treasure hunts across the country and reminds us that history, craftsmanship, and a little bit of luck can turn the most modest of objects into something truly special. So keep your eyes open, check your change carefully, and who knows, you might be holding on to a 1995 USA 1 cent coin that's not just worth 1 cent but $493, making you part of this remarkable chapter in coin collecting history. And if you've enjoyed this journey into the world of numismatic surprises, and want to hear more about coins that could be hiding in your own pocket with unbelievable values, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for more fascinating stories about small coins with big histories. Next, 2017 1 cent coin. Today we're exploring one such piece that proves you don't have to go back decades or centuries to find a treasure worth more than its face value, because we are talking about the 2017 1 cent coin from the United States, a Lincoln Shield penny minted in Denver that, under the right circumstances, can be worth $65 or more. A staggering leap from its humble 1 cent face value, and the reasons behind this are a blend of minting errors, production quirks, and the unique appeal these mistakes have among collectors. So buckle up, because we're going to unravel exactly why this coin is such a prize, what to look for, and how these errors happen. And the first thing to understand is that the 2017 penny is part of the modern Lincoln Shield design series, introduced in 2010 to replace the long-running Lincoln Memorial Reverse, featuring a bold shield on the reverse as a symbol of Lincoln's preservation of the Union, with United States of America across the top, the denomination 1 cent across the center of the shield, and E pluribus unum just above it, while the obverse carries the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right, with "I in God we trust" along the top edge, Liberty to the left, and the date 2017 along with the mint mark D for Denver just below. And though billions of these coins were minted in 2017, not all were struck perfectly, because the coin minting process, despite modern technology, is still susceptible to human and mechanical error, and when these errors occur, they create varieties that can be extremely valuable to collectors, especially if they are dramatic, unusual, and in excellent condition. And among the most sought-after 2017 penny errors are doubled dies, where part of the design appears doubled due to a misalignment in the die-making process, and on the 2017 collectors have reported doubled dies in areas such as the date, the mint mark, and parts of Liberty, or I in God We Trust, with the doubling visible under magnification and sometimes even to the naked eye. And another error type is the die crack or die break, where a small fissure develops in the die and transfers a raised line or blob of metal onto the coin during striking. And these can appear anywhere but are especially interesting when they run through Lincoln's face, the shield, or lettering. And then there's the fascinating category of off-center strikes, where the coin blank was not properly seated in the press and the design is struck off to one side, leaving part of the coin blank, with the value of such an error increasing dramatically if the date is still visible. And equally intriguing are broad strike errors, where the collar die fails to hold the coin in place and the strike spreads the design outward, creating a larger than normal coin with incomplete details along the rim. And another error found on some 2017 D pennies is the misaligned die strike, where one side of the coin is properly centered, but the other is noticeably shifted. And while minor misalignments are common and add little value, major misalignments can attract strong collector interest. And then we have the possibility of wrong planchet errors, where the penny design is struck on a blank intended for another denomination, like a dime, or even a foreign coin, resulting in a coin that is lighter or heavier than normal and with unusual coloration or dimensions. And speaking of planchets, there are also plating errors too. Watch for, since modern pennies are composed of a zinc core with a thin copper plating, and if the plating process is flawed, you might find missing copper areas revealing the silver-gray zinc beneath, or even coins with bubbled or peeling plating, both of which are highly collectible. And another fascinating aspect for the 2017 D penny is the repunched mint mark, where the letter D was stamped more than once in slightly different positions during the die preparation process, creating a shadow like doubling effect on the mint mark that can be spotted with a good magnifying glass. And of course, condition is a major factor in value, because a 2017 D penny with a rare error in pristine mint state, straight from a bank roll or uncirculated set, will be worth far more than the same coin with heavy wear from circulation. And collectors often send such coins to grading services like PCGS or NGC, where a high grade combined with a notable error can boost the price significantly. And while $6.5 may not seem astronomical compared to some older coins worth thousands, it is still an incredible return on a 1-cent piece less than a decade old. And it's this potential for profit, combined with the thrill of the hunt, that drives modern era coin collecting, encouraging people to search through their pocket change, bank rolls, and coin jars for hidden gems. And what's exciting is that these coins are out there right now, not locked away in museums or private collections, but still circulating, waiting to be found by someone with a sharp eye and a bit of patience. And when you think about it, each era coin is a unique piece of minting history, a physical record of a split-second mistake that survived the rigorous quality control of the U.S. Mint and made its way into the public's hands. And that uniqueness is what gives it value, because no two era coins are exactly alike, and each one tells its own story. And for the 2017 D penny, the story is one of modern production, meeting age-old human error, proving that even in an age of precision technology, imperfection can slip through and create something far more interesting and desirable than the intended product. And so the next time you get change at the store, take a close look at those pennies, because you might just find a 2017 D with a doubled die, a dramatic off-center strike, a rare plating flaw, or another fascinating error that turns it from a humble cent into a $65 collectible. And the beauty of this hobby is that anyone can participate, from kids to seasoned experts, and all it takes is curiosity, attention to detail, and the willingness to look more closely at what others overlook. And that's why stories like this are so important, because they inspire people to see value in the everyday, to search for hidden treasures in the most unlikely places, and to connect with a community of like-minded collectors who share the excitement of discovery. And as the years go by, coins like the 2017 D with notable errors will only get harder to find in circulation, which means their value and collectability will likely increase, making them not just a fun find but also a smart investment for the future. And so we encourage you to keep your eyes open, check your change, and never underestimate the potential of even the most ordinary-looking coins, because one day you might spot a small detail that turns a penny into a prize. And if you enjoyed exploring the fascinating story of the 2017 D penny and the surprising value it can hold thanks to its errors and mistakes. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel for more incredible coin stories, and join us on the hunt for the hidden treasures waiting right in our pockets. Next, 1983 Lincoln penny. Today we are turning our attention to a humble coin that has taken the numismatic world by storm. The 1983 USA 1-cent coin, a piece of copper-plated zinc that, in certain rare cases, can be worth as much as $297 because of a combination of unusual errors, striking mistakes, and minting oddities that transform it from ordinary pocket change into a collectible treasure worth hunting for. And this is not just a story about metal and numbers, but about how history, craftsmanship, and a little bit of chance can converge to create something extraordinary. Because when we talk about the 1983 cent, we are stepping into a transitional period in U.S. coinage, a year when the mint was still adjusting to the switch from the heavier bronze alloy used prior to mid-1982 to the lighter copper-plated zinc composition that became standard afterward. And that change brought with it an entire new set of production challenges that opened the door for fascinating and valuable mint errors. So while billions of these coins rolled off the presses in Philadelphia and Denver in 1983, the conditions were ripe for mistakes. Planchet errors, die cracks, doubled dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, clipped planchets, and even transitional errors that involved the wrong metal type being used, such as the famous 1983 copper cent, which weighs 3.11 grams instead of the expected 2.5 grams. And that single detail alone has sent collectors on endless hunts with digital scales in hand, weighing every 1983 cent they can find, because those few surviving bronze planchet strikes have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction, making them the crown jewel of the year's mintage. But even without the wrong metal composition, other 1983 cents can command impressive prices, especially when they exhibit sharp, dramatic doubled dies, where parts of Lincoln's profile, the date, or the inscription show clear doubling visible even without magnification, and these doubled die errors occur when the working die, the hardened steel tool that strikes the coin, is improperly hubbed with slight misalignments between impressions, creating coins with a doubled image that collectors find irresistible. Another variety that pushes values upward is the presence of die cracks and cuds, where breaks in the die cause raised lumps or missing sections of design on the coin's surface, each of these being unique to the specific damaged die and therefore creating a one-of-a-kind collectible. And then there are off-center strikes, where the coin is not perfectly aligned between the dies during striking, resulting in part of the design being cut off and a blank crescent of metal showing on the edge, with the most valuable examples being those that are dramatically off-center yet still showing the full date and mint mark, which helps confirm the coin's identity and authenticity. And we cannot forget broad strikes, where the retaining collar that shapes the rim fails, allowing the metal to spread out wider than normal during striking, giving the coin a flat, wide appearance and often distorting the details in a way that makes the error immediately noticeable even to non-collectors, or clipped planchets, where a portion of the metal blank is missing before the coin is struck, producing a curved or straight-edge void that collectors love. Each of these error types adds its own layer of intrigue to the 1983 cent, but what really drives up the value to $297 in some cases is the combination of such errors with high-grade condition, because in the world of numismatics, condition is king. Coins that have never entered circulation, or that have been carefully preserved in protective holders, can retain their original mint luster, sharp details, and eye appeal, making them far more desirable than worn, scratched, or tarnished examples. And when you pair a dramatic mint error with a top-tier grade like MS-65 or higher from a respected grading service, you end up with a coin that stands out in auction catalogs and sparks bidding wars among collectors. The story of the 1983 cents value is also one of persistence and luck, because while the odds of finding a rare error coin in your change are low, they are not zero, and countless stories have emerged of people discovering valuable 1983 cents in the most mundane places. A handful of coins from a cash register, a jar of spare change inherited from a relative, or even rolled pennies purchased from a bank, and each discovery fuels the excitement and encourages more people to start looking closely at their coins, magnifying glasses and digital scales at the ready. For those hunting specifically for the 1983 copper cent error, weighing each coin is essential, because the difference between the zinc and copper planchets is subtle but measurable, with zinc cents tipping the scale at 2.5 grams and the rare copper ones at 3.11 grams, and that tiny weight difference can mean the difference between a coin worth a cent and one worth hundreds, while for doubled dies and other visual errors, careful examination under good lighting or with a jeweler's loupe can reveal the kind of anomalies that make collectors' hearts race. Of course, the rarity of these coins means that demand often outstrips supply, driving prices higher and turning them into sought-after prizes for serious numismatists. But even beyond the market value, there is something inherently satisfying about holding a piece of history in your hand, knowing that it slipped through the rigorous quality control of the U.S. Mint and survived decades in circulation without being lost or damaged beyond recognition, and that is part of the charm of the 1983 cent. Its value is not just in the metal or the error, but in the story it tells, a story of change in minting technology, human oversight, mechanical quirks, and the randomness of survival. So when we say that a 1983 1-cent coin can be worth $297, we are really talking about a perfect storm of factors: the right year, the right composition or error, the right condition, and the right buyer. And for collectors, that combination is worth every penny of the hunt, because finding one of these coins is not just about the potential financial reward, it's about the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of learning to spot subtle differences, and the connection to a larger community of people who share the same passion. So whether you are a seasoned numismatist with years of experience and a carefully curated collection, or a complete beginner who just found an interesting penny in your pocket, the 1983 cent offers a tangible, exciting way to engage with history and the hobby, and it proves once again that even in a world dominated by digital transactions and credit cards, physical coins still have the power to surprise, delight, and occasionally enrich those who take the time to notice them. And that is why the hunt continues, why coin roll hunters, estate sale browsers, and weekend flea market explorers all keep their eyes peeled for that glint of copper and the promise of something extraordinary. Because somewhere out there, waiting to be discovered, is a 1983 USA 1-cent coin with an error or variety that will transform it from common change into a prize worth $297. And if you've enjoyed diving into this incredible story of how a simple penny can carry so much hidden value in history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for more amazing discoveries in the world of coins that could be hiding in your very own pocket right now. Next, 2007 D1-cent coin. Today we are going to explore the story of the 2007 D1-cent coin that has been known to sell for as much as $154 because of the remarkable errors, minting mistakes, and unique characteristics that make it a standout among ordinary pennies. And this journey will not only open your eyes to the potential value of coins you may have overlooked, but will also give you a detailed, collector-focused perspective on why certain flaws can transform a simple copper-plated zinc piece into a sought-after numismatic gem worth big money. So settle in, because we are going to unravel every possibility, error type, and hidden detail that can make this 2007 D Lincoln cent far more valuable than its face value suggests. Starting with the fact that the 2007 D penny was minted at the Denver Mint during a time when billions of coins were struck each year, which means quality control. While generally reliable, sometimes let-through coins with striking anomalies, planchet defects, or die issues that today are the target of collectors. And when you think about a coin worth $154, you might imagine it needs to be ancient or made of a precious metal. But in truth, value often comes from scarcity in error forms, condition, and the demand among those who seek out such oddities. So the first area to explore is the category of die errors, which can include doubled dies where elements of the design, such as the date, lettering in Liberty, or the words "I in God We Trust," appear doubled due to a misalignment during hubbing. And on a 2007 D cent, a dramatic doubled die can be a real showstopper, especially if the doubling is clear to the naked eye without magnification, making it more desirable and boosting its market price. While more subtle doubling may require a loupe but still holds collector appeal, Then there are die cracks, which occur when the die used to strike the coin develops fractures, leaving raised lines on the coin's surface that can range from tiny hairline cracks to large, bold fissures running through Lincoln's portrait or the reverse design of the Lincoln Memorial, and such cracks, especially if they connect design elements in unusual ways, can generate interest and higher bids. Another die-related anomaly is the die chip, where small bits of the die break away and leave raised blobs of metal on the coin, often in the corners of letters or near Lincoln's eye or mouth, giving rise to nicknames like Bug Eye or Cud pennies when the chip is large enough to obscure part of the design. And speaking of cuds, these are significant die breaks that result in missing design portions and raised blank areas on the coin's edge, which can be quite dramatic and highly collectible, particularly if the cut affects important details or lettering. Moving on to striking errors, we have off-center strikes, where the coin's design is not properly centered because the planchet wasn't seated correctly during striking, and depending on the degree of the off-center strike, with 5% to 10% being common but 50% or more revealing blank planchet space while still showing the date being much rarer, the value can jump significantly. And there are also broad strikes, which occur without the collar die holding the planchet in place, allowing the coin to spread outwards and appear wider with missing or distorted rims, as well as multiple strikes, where the coin is struck more than once and the images overlap, creating a dramatic and eye-catching error that is often instantly recognizable even to non-collectors. Then we come to planchet errors, which can include wrong planchet strikes where the cent design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination, such as a dime or foreign coin, resulting in incorrect weight and appearance, or clipped planchets where part of the metal blank is missing due to a misfeed during blanking, producing a curved or straight clip that interrupts the rim and design, and these can sometimes be paired with Blakesley effect, a flattening of the rim opposite the clip that confirms the error's authenticity. And in 2007, while most planchets were copper-plated zinc weighing 2.5 grams, occasionally one might escape quality checks and be struck on a bronze planchet left over from decades prior, creating a transitional error worth hundreds or even thousands depending on verification. Another aspect of value is condition, because even a common coin can be worth far more if it is in pristine mint state, with sharp details, full luster, and no visible wear. And when an era coin also boasts such top condition, its desirability skyrockets among serious collectors. So a 2007 D with a dramatic off-center strike in MS67 red condition could easily fetch $154 or more, and if it has a pedigree of being discovered early in production, all the better. Then we have repunched mint marks, where the D mint mark for Denver was stamped more than once in slightly different positions, resulting in overlapping impressions visible under magnification, and these varieties often become cataloged in reference guides, drawing the attention of collectors specializing in RPMs. And in addition to mechanical minting flaws, there are also issues like overpolished dies that remove parts of the design, such as missing steps on the Lincoln Memorial reverse, creating subtle yet documented varieties, and striking through debris, where foreign material like grease, metal shavings, or cloth got between the die and planchet, leaving behind indented or smoothed over design areas, is another captivating possibility for the 2007 descent, sometimes leading to coins with ghostly missing letters or faces. And since the minting process involves enormous pressures, even the smallest anomaly can create a one-of-a-kind coin, making each discovery exciting. Collectors also consider the historical and production context, and while the 2007 descent may seem recent, coins from this year represent the last couple of years before the end of the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 2008 and the introduction of the Lincoln bicentennial designs in 2009, giving them a transitional place in modern coinage history, which can enhance appeal when combined with notable errors. And given the huge mintage numbers, finding errors requires careful searching through rolls, bags, or even circulation change. But the thrill of spotting an unusual strike, a doubled feature, or a dramatic off-center piece keeps treasure hunters coming back. Auction records show that collectors are willing to pay well over face value for confirmed and visually appealing errors from modern dates. And when a coin like the 2007 D with a striking flaw and excellent preservation surfaces, competition among bidders can push prices to or beyond $154, especially if two determined collectors both want the same piece. Sometimes these coins are found by complete accident by people with no numismatic background, who then consult dealers or online forums and are astonished to learn the potential worth of what they assumed was an ordinary penny. The possibilities for error combinations further fuel collector interest, such as a coin that is both off-center and struck through grease, or a double die with a die crack crossing Lincoln's face, and such combination errors can be extremely rare, leading to bidding wars, as the collector base for error coins is passionate and worldwide. And while some may view minting mistakes as flaws, in the world of numismatics they are often celebrated as unique snapshots of the minting process gone awry, each telling a tiny but tangible story, which is why the 2007 cent with its possible range of dramatic or subtle errors can hold a place of honor in a collection and command a price far beyond its humble denomination. The key is awareness, education, and the willingness to look closely. Because without that attention, many such treasures could pass unnoticed, so whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting to explore, the lesson from the 2007 penny is clear. Sometimes the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprise, and that surprise could very well be worth $154 or more if the right combination of rarity, error type, and condition comes together, which is why it's worth checking every cent you come across. Because your next pocket full of change might just contain one of these valuable pieces waiting to be discovered, appreciated, and cherished by a collector who knows exactly how special it really is. Next, 1997 Lincoln penny. Today we are going to unravel the story of the 1997 1-cent coin that, because of its errors, mistakes, and rare production anomalies, can be valued as high as $424, a figure that may seem surprising for a coin minted in the late 20th century and one that most people overlook every single day as they pass through their hands in loose change vending machines, or coin jars at home. Yet these subtle errors and striking imperfections transform what appears to be an everyday penny into a collector's treasure, and in this video we are going to explore in detail not just the types of minting errors that have been found on the 1997 penny but also why these errors occur, how they can affect a coin's market value, the historical background of the year 1997 in coin production, and the possibilities that you might have one of these in your possession without even realizing it. Starting with the basic fact that the 1997 Lincoln cent was struck at two major U.S. mint facilities, Philadelphia and Denver, using the copper-plated zinc composition that had been standard since mid-1982, which means that each coin consists of a zinc core with a thin outer layer of copper, and because zinc is softer and reacts differently to the striking process, this composition can sometimes contribute to certain striking errors, plating blisters, or corrosion spots that, when appearing in unique ways, add to collector interest. And when we talk about errors on the 1997 penny, we can categorize them into major types including double dies, off-center strikes, broad strikes, die cracks, die clashes, struck-through errors, misaligned dies, and wrong planchet strikes, each with its own impact on value depending on severity, eye appeal, and rarity. So for example, a double die on the obverse might show noticeable doubling on the date, the motto, "In God We Trust," or the word, "Liberty." And while minor machine doubling is common and not worth much, a strong true double die is far rarer and can push the coin's value into the hundreds. And then there's the off-center strike, where the coin is struck with the design noticeably shifted away from the center, sometimes so dramatically that part of the design is missing entirely. And the more dramatic the off-center percentage without losing the full date, the more desirable it becomes, with severe examples fetching prices well above $100 and occasionally over $400 depending on condition. And we also must consider broad strike errors, where the coin is struck outside the retaining collar so it spreads out larger than normal, creating a flat edge without reading and an odd appearance that is immediately eye-catching to error collectors. And then die cracks, which are raised lines on the surface of the coin caused by breaks in the die itself, can sometimes form dramatic patterns like cuds, where a whole portion of the design is replaced by a blob of raised metal, making them stand out as minting oddities. And die clashes happen when the dies strike each other without a planchet in between, transferring partial impressions of one side's design onto the other side of the coin. And when these clash marks are bold and dramatic, they make for fascinating error examples that draw interest from enthusiasts. And struck through errors occur when some foreign object like a piece of cloth, wire, or even grease gets between the die and planchet during striking, leaving behind an unusual imprint that is unique to that coin. And then we have misaligned die strikes where one die is out of proper alignment, causing the design on one side to be shifted relative to the other. And finally, wrong planchet errors where the 1997-cent design is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination like a dime or foreign coin, making for an extreme rarity that can command prices well into the thousands. Though more modest wrong planchet cases can still bring several $100s, and the reason the 1997 penny in particular has been noted for a value like $424 in top error examples is that while it was produced in the billions, quality control issues, die wear, and production speed sometimes allowed remarkable errors to escape the mint. And because this was still an era before automated sorting machines in banks and vending systems rejected odd-sized or off-weight coins as strictly as they do today, many of these errors went unnoticed into circulation, giving today's collectors a treasure hunt challenge. And condition plays a huge role too, because a 1997 penny with a rare error in mint state condition, especially one graded and authenticated by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC, can sell for a premium far above a circulated counterpart, with even small errors being more valuable if they are crisp, bright, and free from post-mint damage. And this brings us to the fascinating reality that errors are often one of a kind, meaning even two coins with similar types of errors can differ in how the mistake manifests, giving each a unique identity in the numismatic world. And this uniqueness appeals to collectors who want something no one else has. And the market for such coins is driven not only by rarity and condition but also by demand, which can fluctuate as trends in coin collecting shift, yet error coins have always maintained a strong niche following, making them a relatively safe area of interest for dedicated enthusiasts. And when we analyze the historical context of 1997 coinage, we find that this was a time when the mint was operating at high production levels to meet demand, using dies until they were worn and sometimes pushing the limits of quality control to keep up, and worn dies naturally produce more striking anomalies like die cracks, clashes, and minor doubling, which, when they cross into dramatic territory, yield the kind of collectible examples that can be valued at hundreds of dollars. And as for the specific market example of $4.24 valuation, this would typically represent a high-grade mint state coin with a major and dramatic error, possibly an off-center strike of 40% or more while retaining the full date, or a bold doubled die with extremely clear separation of design elements, or a broad strike combined with a secondary error like a die clash, making it a spectacular piece in the eyes of collectors. And for those who wonder about the chances of finding one, it's worth noting that while the odds are slim, coins like this do turn up in circulation, in old penny jars, or in inherited collections where they've been sitting unnoticed for decades. And because most people don't inspect their pennies closely, there is always the possibility that a treasure is hiding in plain sight. And the best approach for anyone interested in searching is to educate themselves on what errors look like, use magnification to inspect coins carefully, and learn to differentiate between true mint errors and post-mint damage caused by wear, corrosion, or intentional alteration, because only genuine mint errors command premium prices. And the 1997 penny offers a perfect example of how an otherwise common coin can leap in value due to a quirk in the minting process, making it not just a piece of currency but a piece of numismatic art shaped by the unintended consequences of high-speed industrial production. And when you consider that a single cent could be worth $424 simply because of an error that occurred for just a moment in time on a minting press nearly 3 decades ago, it really highlights the magic of coin collecting, the thrill of the hunt, the joy of discovery, and the satisfaction of holding a tangible piece of mint history that tells a story far richer than its face value, a story of chance, mechanics, history, and human oversight that converged in a way that created something truly unique and valuable. And so the next time you get a penny in your change, whether it's a 1997 or any other year, take a moment to look closer, because hidden in those little copper discs could be a small fortune waiting to be discovered, and that is exactly why collectors, hobbyists, and even casual coin hunters are drawn to the world of numismatics. Because sometimes, all it takes is one coin, one error, one lucky find, to turn an ordinary day into a story worth telling. Next, 1970 1-cent coin. Today we're about to explore a story that is going to make you look twice at every penny you encounter, because we're talking about the 1970 1-cent coin, a piece of copper-clad history that in certain rare cases can sell for as much as $621 because of the remarkable errors and mistakes that occurred during its production. And while at first glance you might dismiss it as just another Lincoln Memorial cent minted in Denver in the early 1970s, the reality is that the minting process of that era left behind a trail of fascinating blunders, varieties, and anomalies that today's collectors and numismatists hunt for with almost obsessive precision. So if you've ever wondered how a coin worth just a cent in face value could become a small fortune for someone lucky enough to find it in top condition or with the right kind of error, you're in for an eye-opening journey as we break down every detail of what makes this coin so valuable, starting with the historical backdrop of 1970, when the United States Mint was operating under a mix of old mechanical systems and new technological changes, a combination that sometimes led to quality control oversights. And in Denver, where the D mint mark signifies its origin, millions of these 1-cent coins rolled off the presses. Yet among them were pieces that were struck with striking anomalies such as double die obverse errors, off-center strikes, and misaligned dies, all of which could drastically alter the coin's value. And one of the most talked about error types for 1970 cents is the double die obverse, where certain letters in Liberty, in God We Trust, or the date itself appear double due to a misalignment during the hubbing process, making the coin instantly stand out to trained eyes. And while the most famous double die cent is the 1955 version, the 1970 still holds a place of distinction in collector circles because examples with clear, strong doubling can fetch hundreds of dollars, particularly in higher grades. But that's just scratching the surface, because another factor boosting the desirability of this coin is the presence of mint mark anomalies where the D is repunched or misplaced, creating RPM, repunched mint mark, varieties that, while small to the naked eye, become treasures under magnification. And then there are the off-center strikes, which happen when the blank planchet isn't seated correctly in the press, causing part of the design to be missing and leaving a crescent of blank copper visible. With the more dramatic the off-centering, the more the coin is worth, though collectors often prefer strikes where the date is still visible so they can authenticate it. And we cannot forget about broad strikes, where the coin was struck without the collar die in place, causing it to expand beyond its normal diameter and giving it a warped, oversized look, making it instantly appealing for those who love odd-looking pieces. And then there's the die cracks and cuds, raised metal lines or blobs on the surface of the coin caused by breaks or chips in the die, that not only add personality to a coin but can be worth more depending on their size and location, with larger cuds sometimes commanding impressive premiums. And when you combine these error possibilities with the fact that the early 1970s were still producing cents primarily from a bronze alloy of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, you add a layer of intrinsic metal value that modern zinc cents simply can't match, which also makes uncirculated or high-grade specimens more desirable, especially in today's numismatic market where condition and originality reign supreme. And speaking of condition, grading plays a massive role in determining whether a 1970 cent is worth face value or hundreds of dollars. With coins graded MS-65 or higher by PCGS or NGC commanding top dollar, especially if they also feature a recognized error or variety. And let's not forget about proof-like or exceptional strike quality coins that sometimes slip out of the mint in regular circulation runs, catching collectors off guard when they find one with mirror-like fields and sharp details, adding another layer of collectability. And interestingly, some 1970 cents are known to have weak strikes, where certain parts of the design lack full detail due to inadequate striking pressure. And while this can sometimes lower a coin's desirability, In the world of error collecting, even weak strikes have their fans, especially when they're coupled with other anomalies. And when we look at the marketplace, we see that auction records and online sales show that collectors are willing to pay well above $600 for pristine, rare error examples, and the appeal comes not just from the rarity but also from the story behind the coin, because each piece with an error is like a fingerprint of the minting process gone wrong. A unique artifact of history that cannot be exactly replicated, and that's what makes numismatics such an addictive hobby for so many, because you're not just holding money, you're holding a one-of-a-kind accident that somehow survived decades of commerce without being lost, melted, or damaged. And when you think about the journey of a 1970 cent from the Denver mint presses into bags, into banks, into the pockets of Americans, and across thousands of hands before ending up in a collector's album or auction lot, you realize just how slim the odds are that a high-grade error coin could make it all the way to today. And yet here we are, with certain examples commanding hundreds of dollars, reminding us that there's always treasure hiding in plain sight. And the fascinating part is that even if you don't find the exact rare double die or dramatic off-center example, there are countless smaller varieties and mint-made quirks from 1970 that can still be worth more than face value, especially when sold to the right buyer who understands their significance. So, whether you're a seasoned numismatist or a casual coin roll hunter, the lesson is clear: pay attention to the details, because even the smallest difference in a letter's shape, a date's alignment, or a mint mark's punch can mean the difference between 1 cent and hundreds of dollars. And in a world where most people ignore change entirely, the opportunity is wide open for those willing to take the time to look. And as you keep exploring, you'll realize that the beauty of coins like the 1970 1 cent isn't just in the copper glow or Lincoln's familiar profile, but in the hidden stories, the minting mysteries, and the chance discoveries that turn an everyday object into a prized collectible. And that's what makes this hobby so exciting. You never know when the next coin you find will be the one that changes your day, your week, or maybe even your bank account. Next, 1999 Lincoln penny. Today we are exploring a 1999 1-cent coin that could be worth as much as $235 because of its unique errors and minting mistakes. And in this journey we are going to unpack not just the fascinating background of the 1999 penny but also the types of errors that can catapult its value from just a cent to hundreds of dollars in the hands of collectors and enthusiasts. So let's set the stage by understanding why 1999 is an intriguing year for coin collectors, because it was right before the turn of the millennium, a time when the US Mint was already preparing for massive changes in coin production and design, which sometimes resulted in coins slipping through quality control with fascinating defects. These defects may not have been obvious to the average person spending their change at a store, but to a trained eye they can represent rare varieties that collectors prize, and the 1999 1-cent coin in particular comes in the Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been in use since 1959 but nearing the end of its run before the 2009 Lincoln bicentennial redesign, and that means that any mint errors from this era carry a certain nostalgic and historical weight that increases their desirability. Now, when we talk about errors that can make a 1999 penny worth $235, we're usually dealing with specific categories of mistakes. The first major one being die errors, where the die that stamps the design into the blank coin flan has some flaw. This can include die cracks where visible raised lines run across Lincoln's portrait or the memorial building on the reverse. These cracks happen when the die is stressed and begins to fracture over time, creating distinct raised patterns that are unique to that die. And since dies are eventually replaced once they degrade, coins with these cracks are limited in number, which is exactly what drives their value. Then there are die chips, which are small blobs of extra metal often seen in spots like Lincoln's eye or along the lettering, and although small they can create dramatic appeal for collectors, especially if the chip is in a visually noticeable area like in the B of Liberty, or inside the numbers of the date. Another notable error is the doubled die, which can occur on either the obverse or reverse and results in a slightly doubled image where details like the date or lettering appear twice offset from each other. And on 1999 cents, there are known examples of strong doubled dies in the date and in the word Liberty and the motto "I in God We Trust," a feature that immediately catches the eye when viewed under magnification, and can make such a coin jump far above face value into the hundreds of dollars territory. Then we have planchet errors, where the blank piece of metal used to make the coin is flawed before the design is even struck. For instance, some 1999 pennies have been found struck on foreign coin planchets, or on planchets meant for dimes or other denominations, which can cause them to weigh less or more than a standard cent, and when collectors find an off-metal strike like that, the value skyrockets dramatically. Also, among the 1999 1-cent coins, we sometimes see off-center strikes where the design is not aligned correctly with the coin's surface, resulting in part of the design being cut off and a blank crescent of metal being visible. This type of error can range from minor misalignments worth a few dollars to dramatic off-center strikes of 50% or more, which can be valued in the hundreds depending on eye appeal and the amount of visible detail in both Lincoln's portrait and the reverse memorial building. A similar but distinct error is a broad strike, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar in place, allowing the metal to expand outwards, resulting in a wider, flatter coin with the design still fully visible. This unusual shape can make even common dates more desirable, and when combined with a late 1990s date like 1999, which is already collectible to some, can push the price higher. Next, we can't forget the concept of repunched mint marks. Although by 1999 the mint had largely transitioned to using single punch mint marks as part of the master die, in earlier decades there were still occasional cases where a mint mark looked doubled or slightly misaligned from being punched twice, and collectors prize these repunched marks for the uniqueness of each example. Now, the condition of the coin is another massive factor in determining its value, because while errors create the base rarity, the overall grade determines the ceiling value. A 1999 penny with a dramatic off-center strike but covered in scratches, dirt, or heavy wear from circulation might sell for tens of dollars, whereas the same coin in uncirculated condition with full original luster could fetch the full $235 or even more at auction. And that's where grading comes in, with top-tier coins being sent to services like PCGS or NGC, where professional graders assign a number grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70, with higher numbers indicating better condition for business. Strike pennies from 1999 and MS65 or higher with a desirable error is where you can expect the strongest market demand and prices. Another aspect making 1999 1 cents intriguing is the minor hub design changes in Lincoln's portrait over the decades, meaning some sharp-eyed collectors look for subtle differences in features such as the thickness of the date numerals or the shape of the letters in Liberty and In God We Trust, and when these varieties combine with errors, you have a recipe for highly sought-after coins. For example, a coin with both a double die and an off-center strike becomes a double rarity, which can attract aggressive bidding in collector markets. Also worth noting is the role of die states, where coins struck early in a die's life have sharper, crisper details, while those from later stages show where lines, die cracks, and chips more prominently. Sometimes these late die states are exactly what collectors want, because the dramatic visual indicators of die wear create one-of-a-kind patterns. And if you're wondering why collectors would pay $235 for a single penny, it's because the coin market values scarcity, historical context, visual appeal, and collector demand above the face value. And when an error coin checks all those boxes, it becomes far more than loose change in a jar. In fact, there are well-documented auction sales of 1999 Lincoln cents with major doubling or off-metal planchets selling for hundreds, and in certain pristine cases even exceeding the $235 range, which just goes to show that even in a relatively modern year like 1999, treasures can still be found in your pocket change. The beauty of this is that anyone could potentially stumble upon one while coin roll hunting, going through bank-wrapped rolls, or even just sorting through old jars of coins collected over the years. And the thrill of the hunt keeps collectors engaged, because each coin has the potential to be something extraordinary. Of course, not every 1999 penny is worth big money, and the vast majority will only ever be worth 1 cent, but the handful that feature these rare and desirable errors become stars in the numismatic world and serve as reminders that quality control at the mint is a human-driven process, and where there are humans there will always be occasional mistakes that slip through the cracks, literally and figuratively, in the die steals. So whether it's a dramatic off-center strike, a strong double die, an off-metal planchet, or a coin with multiple errors in pristine uncirculated condition, the combination of rarity, beauty, and demand is what elevates a 1999 1 cent from mere pocket change to a $235 collectible. And that is why keeping an eye out for these little details can turn an ordinary day into an extraordinary discovery, as more collectors learn about these varieties, the competition for them grows, meaning that coins like this will likely hold or even increase their value over time, making them not just a fascinating piece of history but also a potential investment for those who know what to look for. So the next time you find a 1999 penny, take a closer look, because you just might be holding a small copper-plated treasure that could be worth far more than its humble denomination suggests. Next, 2014 D1 cent. Today we're focusing on a modern coin that might seem too common to be valuable but is in fact a small wonder in the world of mint errors. The 2014 D1 cent coin, a Lincoln Shield cent minted in Denver, which in some cases can sell for as much as $62 because of the unique errors, striking mistakes, and production anomalies that make certain examples stand out to collectors. So if you've ever thought modern coins aren't worth looking at closely, this story will change your perspective entirely, because the truth is, even in an era of high-speed modern minting, mistakes still happen, and when they do, they can create collectible pieces worth many times their face value. And the 2014 D penny is an excellent case study in how something so common can suddenly become special. So let's start by understanding the backdrop. 2014 was well into the era of the Lincoln Shield reverse design, introduced in 2010, replacing the long-running Lincoln Memorial reverse, and these coins are made from a core of 97.5% zinc with a thin copper plating making up 2.5%, a composition that is both a blessing and a curse for collectors, because while it gives the coin a bright copper appearance when new, it is also prone to plating blisters, peeling, and other surface issues that can sometimes qualify as collectible mint errors depending on their cause. And the Denver Mint in 2014 struck billions of these cents, so the challenge is finding the few among them that feature mistakes significant enough to be worth more than a penny. And that's where the story gets interesting, because there are several documented types of errors on 2014 D cents that command premiums, one of the most talked about being the doubled die obverse, where letters like Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date 2014 show signs of clear doubling under magnification, caused during the hubbing process when the die received multiple misaligned impressions. And while the doubling on modern coins is often more subtle than on vintage pieces like the famous 1955 doubled die, collectors still pay attention to these varieties, and stronger examples can bring in $20 to $60 depending on grade. And then there are the off-center strikes, which occur when the blank planchet is not perfectly centered in the press, causing part of the design to be missing and a crescent of blank space to appear. With more dramatic off-centers, especially those where the date and mint mark are still visible, fetching higher prices, sometimes in the $30 to $60 range for 2014 D examples in uncirculated condition. And we also have broad strike errors where the coin is struck without the collar die, allowing it to spread outward and produce a larger than normal diameter with no reading on the edge. And while cents don't have reeded edges, the smooth, stretched shape is still distinctive and collectible. Another error type seen on 2014 D cents is the die crack or die cud, which occurs when the die develops fractures or breaks during production, leading to raised lines or blobs of metal on the coin's surface, and larger, more dramatic cuds that obscure parts of the design can be quite valuable, especially to collectors of error coinage. And then there's the issue of plating errors unique to copper-plated zinc cents like the 2014 D, since these coins have a thin layer of copper over a zinc core. Problems can occur during production, such as incomplete plating, exposing parts of the zinc core, or causing bubbles under the copper surface known as plating blisters. And while minor blisters are common and usually not worth much, dramatic or unusual examples that affect large portions of the coin can be more desirable, especially if they occurred during the minting process rather than from post-mint damage. And another fascinating error type for this date is the misaligned die strike, where the obverse and reverse designs don't line up perfectly, which can result in part of the design being closer to the rim on one side and further away on the other. And while mild misalignments are common, extreme cases are far scarcer and can be worth significantly more. And we can't forget about multiple strike errors where the coin is struck more than once, creating overlapping images that can be quite dramatic and highly collectible, though these are rare for 2014 D cents. And when you think about how fast modern presses run, hundreds of coins per minute, it's easy to see how even a tiny lapse can result in an error that slips through quality control, and once that coin enters circulation, its value becomes tied to the interest of collectors who appreciate not just the rarity, but also the story behind its creation. And that's what makes the 2014 D penny worth looking at closely, because even though billions were made, only a small fraction carried the kind of errors that boost their value to $62 or more. And condition plays a huge role here because a 2014 D with a rare error in uncirculated or high mint state condition will command far more than one with heavy wear, so coin roll hunters and change checkers often focus on bank rolls or fresh mint sets to increase their odds of finding pristine examples. And another reason these coins can be so interesting to collectors is that they represent the modern era of US coinage, meaning they're accessible to new collectors who might not have the budget for vintage rarities but still want something unusual and valuable. And over time, as error coins are pulled from circulation, their scarcity increases, which could make certain varieties from 2014 D even more valuable in the future. So if you've got a jar of pennies sitting around, it's worth taking a closer look because spotting a double die, off-center strike, dramatic cud, or significant plating error could turn a penny into a $62 collectible, and it's this sense of possibility, the thrill of finding treasure in an everyday object, that keeps collectors engaged year after year. And while the value of any given era coin depends on factors like rarity, condition, and demand, the underlying truth is that the 2014 D cent is proof that even in the 21st century, the minting process is still imperfect enough to give us fascinating and valuable mistakes. So the next time you get change back at the store, don't just toss it in a cup or spend it without a glance. Because hidden among those shiny coppers could be a tiny piece of minting history, one that connects you directly to the machinery, the process, and the human oversight that created it, and one that might just be worth far more than its face value if you're lucky enough to recognize it when you see it. Next, 2000 D 1 cent coin. Today we're exploring the 2000 D 1 cent coin, a piece that, despite its tiny face value of just 1 cent, can be worth around $92 or even more in the right circumstances due to the presence of rare errors, striking mistakes, and unique minting anomalies that elevate it from common change to a prized collectible. And as we unravel the details, you'll see how a coin struck in the Denver Mint in the year 2000 can carry such an impressive market value, starting with the context of its production during a period when the U.S. Mint was still using the Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been in circulation since 1959, paired with the familiar Lincoln obverse. But the Denver facility, like all mints, was not immune to occasional mishaps in the high-speed coin striking process, and those mishaps are exactly what intrigue collectors the most. Because while millions of perfectly struck coins rolled off the presses, a much smaller number emerged with distinctive flaws like off-center strikes, where the die fails to align properly with the planchet, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted, sometimes enough to visibly cut off letters in Liberty or parts of Lincoln's portrait, making each such piece visually striking and unique. And the degree of the off-center shift can dramatically affect the coin's desirability, with collectors paying the most for dramatic examples that still show a complete date. Then there are die cracks and die breaks, where the working die develops fractures from repeated use, leading to raised, irregular lines or blobs of extra metal on the finished coins, often in eye-catching positions like across Lincoln's head or near the date, turning what would be a normal cent into an oddity that feels one of a kind. Another sought-after error is the double die variety, where a misalignment during the hubbing process causes parts of the design to appear doubled, which can be most noticeable in the lettering of "In God We Trust, Liberty," or the date. And while not every doubling is dramatic enough to be instantly visible without magnification, the more pronounced ones can attract significant premiums. Then there's the possibility of broad strike errors where the coin is struck outside of the collar that normally contains its shape, producing a wider and slightly distorted cent without the standard raised rim. A mistake instantly noticeable to even casual observers, along with clipped planchet errors, where a portion of the blank metal disc is missing before the strike, resulting in a curved or straight clip on the finished coin. And in rare cases multiple errors can occur on the same coin, which sends its collectible value soaring because of the extreme rarity. And let's not forget that in 2000 the Denver Mint produced billions of cents, meaning the law of large numbers says a few mistakes are bound to slip through. But also that finding them among so many normal examples is like finding the proverbial needle in a haystack, which is why those who discover them are often thrilled to realize they hold something far more valuable than face value. And in terms of condition, the grading plays a crucial role too, with coins in mint state condition, those that never entered circulation or have only the faintest signs of handling, commanding the highest premiums, especially if the error is crisp and easily visible. And this combination of rarity, error type, and condition is what makes the 2000 D1 cent an exciting target for collectors today, because not every coin with a mint mark D from 2000 is special, but those with these anomalies can break free from the ordinary and become conversation pieces and investment items. And when we talk about possibilities, we must consider that even minor anomalies like small die chips, slightly rotated dies where the reverse is twisted in alignment relative to the obverse, or subtle planchet flaws can make a coin interesting to specialized error collectors who look for these details under magnification. And with the growth of online auction platforms, what once might have gone unnoticed in someone's change can now be showcased to a global audience of collectors ready to bid competitively for the right piece. And historically, certain years and mint marks develop followings due to known major error varieties. And the 2000D has examples that fit into this trend, meaning that diligent searching through rolls of pennies from banks or change jars at home can actually yield surprising finds, especially for those who train their eyes to spot the subtle differences between standard strikes and errors. And as we consider the minting process itself, the pressure, heat, and speed at which these coins are made mean that even tiny variances in die pressure, metal composition, or planchet preparation can lead to differences in the final product. And some collectors go so far as to hunt for transitional errors, although for the 2000D these would be less about design changes and more about planchet or die issues, yet even so, variations in copper plating thickness or surface texture can lead to odd-looking coins that some numismatists find desirable. And the psychology behind why these coins command higher prices is rooted in scarcity and the human fascination with imperfection. People are naturally drawn to the rare and unusual. And in a hobby where billions of coins look identical, a small handful that stand out become the stars of the show. And over time, as more collectors become aware of a particular error type, demand can outpace supply, which drives up values further, making it possible for something that costs 1 cent to fetch many dollars. And when we consider the $92 figure for a 2000D 1 cent with certain errors, it's a reflection of this market dynamic, with the exact price depending on the severity of the error, the coin's preservation, and the current appetite among collectors for that type of mistake. And while some may think that modern coins can't be valuable because they're so new, the truth is that error coins defy that logic, with values determined not by age alone but by how rare and desirable the error is, meaning that a coin minted just over 2 decades ago can still be a key find for an error specialist's collection. And stories abound of people discovering valuable error cents in pocket change, flea markets, or inherited coin jars, selling them for hundreds of times their face value, reinforcing the excitement of searching and the possibility that any coin in your hand might be something special. And with the 2000D, the hunt continues for those dramatic off-centers, bold doubled dies, clean clipped planchets, and unusual die cracks that make for prized additions to any collection, all of which is why this humble copper-plated zinc cent, normally overlooked, can be transformed into a miniature treasure worth many times more than its denomination, inspiring both casual finders and dedicated numismatists to keep looking closely at their change, because the next great discovery could be hiding in plain sight. And that is what makes exploring coins like the 2000D 1 cent so endlessly engaging for those of us who appreciate the blend of history, craftsmanship, and the unpredictable quirks of the minting process that can turn a simple cent into a story worth telling and a collectible worth owning. Last, today we're going to explore the incredible story of the 2017 P1 cent coin, a coin that on the surface might look like any other modern penny, but because of its unique errors and minting mistakes can be worth as much as $109 in the eyes of collectors and enthusiasts. And to fully understand why this seemingly common coin can command such a price, we need to step back and appreciate both the historical context and the very specific circumstances surrounding its creation, because the 2017 penny holds a special place in American numismatic history. It was the first time in over 225 years of United States mint history that the Philadelphia Mint placed its identifying mint mark, the letter P, on a Lincoln cent in recognition of the mint's 225th anniversary, making it instantly notable for collectors even before we factor in errors and mistakes normally. Pennies struck at the Philadelphia Mint carried no mint mark at all, so the addition of the small p under the date was in itself a collectible milestone. And because this change was only officially announced in early 2017 and applied for just that 1 year, it means every 2017 penny carries a certain historic and commemorative appeal, which sets the stage for its value to increase when paired with genuine mint errors. Now, when we dive into the types of errors that can make a 2017 penny worth $109, we find several fascinating categories, each with its own story. The first major category is die errors, where the die that imprints the coin's design into the blank planchet develops a flaw over time. This can manifest as die cracks, which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface following the path of the fracture in the die itself. On 2017 pennies, these cracks can sometimes be seen extending from Lincoln's portrait into the fields, or along the Lincoln Memorial shield on the reverse, and since each die crack pattern is unique, coins with large or visually striking cracks become highly desirable. There are also die chips, which are small areas where a fragment of the die face breaks away, resulting in a blob of extra metal filling in a detail on the coin. For example, a chip in Lincoln's eye can give the appearance of a blind eye, while a chip in the shield stripes can interrupt the pattern and make the coin stand out. Then there's the doubled die error, a particularly exciting find for collectors where the design elements appear to have been struck twice but slightly offset. This doubling can be seen in the date, the mint mark P, the word liberty, or the national motto I in God we trust, and when the doubling is strong enough to be visible to the naked eye, it can catapult the value of the coin far beyond its face value, especially for a historically significant issue like the 2017 Another category is striking errors which happen during the actual process of pressing the design into the blank metal. One of the most dramatic is the off-center strike, where the coin is misaligned during striking, so part of the design is missing and a blank crescent of metal is visible. The degree of off-center strike affects value, with coins that are 50% off-center and still show a full date being the most valuable. A related error is the broad strike, which occurs when the retaining collar fails to hold the coin in place, allowing it to expand outward, producing a wider, flatter appearance and giving the coin an unusual and collectible look. Other striking errors can include multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once, creating overlapping images, or partial collar strikes where part of the edge shows a railroad track-like design from being partially in the collar. Planchet errors are another important contributor to value for 2017 pennies. While most are struck on proper copper-plated zinc planchets, there are rare cases where they are accidentally struck on planchets intended for other coins, such as foreign denominations or other U.S. coins like dimes or nickels. This results in off-metal strikes, which can weigh more or less than a standard cent, and instantly draw the attention of serious collectors because of their rarity. In some cases, the wrong planchet can cause the coin to appear undersized or to have a different color tone, making it visually distinct from normal issues. There are also clipped planchets where part of the blank metal disc is missing before striking, creating a curved or straight clip in the finished coin and adding to its appeal in the error collecting community. When we combine any of these errors with the fact that 2017 is a 1-year only issue with historical significance, the desirability and market demand for high-quality examples increases sharply. But condition is critical here, because while errors can make a coin rare, the grade or state of preservation determines how high it can climb in value. A 2017 with a mild die crack and heavily circulated condition might bring a few dollars, but the same coin in pristine mint state with strong luster, no visible wear and sharp detail, could easily approach or exceed the $109 figure, especially if it's certified by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Grading also adds authenticity and trust to the error attribution, which can make collectors more willing to pay a premium. Another element to consider is that some 2017 errors are dramatic enough to be considered showpiece coins, the kind of finds that collectors display prominently in their collections, such as a coin with an obverse struck through a foreign object like a piece of cloth or wire, leaving a distinctive recessed pattern in the design, or a coin with a massive retained cut where part of the die has broken off but remains in place during striking, leaving a bold raised lump along the rim. These coins often fetch significant sums because they are visually impressive and instantly recognizable even to non-collectors, and while the U.S. Mint's modern production process is generally very precise, the sheer scale of coin output means that occasional mistakes are inevitable. In 2017, the Philadelphia Mint produced billions of pennies, so even a minuscule error rate could still result in thousands of error coins being released into circulation. The challenge for collectors is that they are scattered randomly across the country and may be sitting unnoticed in change jars or bank rolls, which is why coin roll hunting has become such a popular hobby in recent years. The thrill of finding a valuable 2017 error penny for just 1 cent is a powerful motivator, and stories of such finds often make waves in the numismatic community, adding to the mystique and desirability of these coins. It's also worth mentioning that the 2017 penny's historical significance adds an extra layer of collectability even for coins without dramatic errors, since it was the first and only year Philadelphia pennies carried the mint mark. Some collectors aim to assemble complete sets of all known error varieties from that year, creating a built-in market for every new discovery that surfaces. This means that if you find a 2017 with even a minor but clear error, you may still be able to sell it for more than face value simply because it fills a niche in someone's collection. When we look at auction results and private sales, there are multiple documented cases of 2017 error pennies selling for tens or even over $100, depending on the nature and visibility of the error. And when a coin combines a major error with superb condition, it's not uncommon for bidding wars to push prices toward that $109 mark or higher, and that's the beauty of modern coin collecting. It's not just about ancient or gold coins. Even a coin minted just a few years ago can hold remarkable value if it has the right combination of rarity, condition, and demand. So if you come across a 2017 penny, take the time to examine it closely. Look for doubling chips, cracks, off-center strikes, unusual coloration or shape, and consider weighing it to detect off-metal strikes, because you never know when you might have stumbled upon a small copper-plated zinc treasure that turns out to be worth far more than you ever imagined. And in the case of the 2017 with its 1-year-only mint mark and the potential for dramatic and eye-catching errors, you just might be holding a piece of numismatic history that not only tells the story of the mint's 225th anniversary, but also proves that even in our modern high-speed coinage era, mistakes can still slip through and make certain coins truly special.